Hello, and welcome to a new season of Five Alarm Task Force. It is an honor to be with you one more season, and I could not start off with a better guest to kick us off, especially after my two kickoff people last week have been out, but due to emergencies. But this is going to be with us this morning is Chief Arjuna George. And let me just let you know some of the other people coming up in the next few weeks. Retired Chief Charlie Werner, who's the Executive Director for Drone Responders. So if your department, whether it's EMS, fire, or law enforcement, you can learn a lot with drone responders, and they can be a major tool for you. Also, Diane Cotter. If you're in the fire service, you know and Diane, who she is and how she has fought for all of us, present firefighters, former firefighters, like her husband, and against the carcinogenic elements in our bunker gear. But yes, the same bunker gear that we put on to go out and protect our communities and the people in it, the manufacturers were poisoning us. Oh, we didn't do anything like that. Yeah, unfortunately, we got court papers that show you did. Also, and along with Diane on that same podcast will be the founder and producer of Ethereal Films, Elijah Yetter Bowman. So they'll both be together on a future podcast. Also, Jeff Dill from the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance. He's going to be with us. Aaron Zamzow, Zam, as he likes to go by, talking about firefighter health and wellness. And another great guest, Chief Mark Bashore, and he'll be talking about some of the key issues that he's brought up in his posts, both online and in the magazine. So we have a lot of good people coming up and more bookings thanks to our automatic online calendar, which I got from a previous guest, a mutual friend of ours, Andy Clark, in Toronto. And I can't thank her enough. Just that tool itself saved my guests and me from 12, 13 emails going back and forth. Is this date good? Is that good? Now you find your date that's good, click it, and we're all set. And that's great. So Chief, it's a pleasure. I know it's retired, but you still were a chief. And that was just a grunt. So it's great to have you back with us. Thank you for finding time. And I know how busy you are. And I hope that all our listeners and viewers are watching and listening to Beneath the Helmet. And you just can't get in by reading the book Beneath the Helmet. That's like tippy toes. You got to get into everything that the chief provides through his Silver Arrow counseling and so much more. And he'll tell us a little bit more what's coming up. So welcome back, Chief. It's a pleasure. And really, as I consider you a close friend, even though we've never had the chance to physically meet, but you're the one, you really had a lot of impact on us and on me personally.
I couldn't agree more. Ditto. Yeah, like you said, when we were chatting offline, is like you were there to help me kind of launch my second chapter as well, and kind of gave me the opportunity to share my story a year and a half ago on this podcast. So really appreciate it, and we've chatted back and forth many times, and yeah, it's great to connect with you once again.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. Folks, just a quick bio from the Chief. Arjuna George is a trauma-informed resilience coach and a TRE provider specializing in performance coaching for burnout prevention and recovery of fire chiefs and fire leaders. He retired in 2021 as the fire chief of Salt Spring Island Fire Rescue after 24 years of service. He is a certified professional coach specializing in fire chief and officer stress, mastery, and resilience. He has helped fire chiefs and officers across the country be emotionally intelligent leaders. He's a family man, entrepreneur, author, and retired fire chief with a passion for helping others lead healthier and happier lives. He is now the principal owner of Silver Arrow Coaching and Consulting, specializing in fire chief coaching and training. He graduated from Royal Roads University in 2022 with a graduate certificate in executive coaching. He is a regular contributor for Canadian firefighter magazines, Firefighting in Canada, and now Crackle as well.
Crackle, yes.
And with our friend Corey Pern, and is an author of Burnt Around the Edges, a guide to mastering stress and surviving burnout. And Chief, what I'd really like you to do is just to, in a capsule, tell our viewers and listeners again, what changed your path from fire chief and fire 24 years, almost a quarter century with the same department, okay, growing from a kid who started out there to the chief of department. But as other chiefs have found out, we've talked about them, getting those 5 bugles is not the clear stairway to heaven that we often think it is, right?
No, definitely not. Yeah, it can be, no doubt about it. It can be. I don't want to take that away from it, but yeah. So yeah, my journey ended in 2021, like you said, and I had lots of contemplation because, like, what am I going to do? The reason I had to take a break in 2020 was burnout. I just basically hit a wall and just could not function to the way that I want to show up as a leader, anyways, or as a human in that regard. And so, yeah, I had to do lots of kind of introspection and kind of figure out what was next. And coaching myself, I was allowed to see that there was other things that I could do that would still support the fire service, but not have me go back operationally. And I was like, okay, what are those things? And that was writing a book, that was speaking, workshops, and podcasting. So I ventured into all of those to dabble in which one would resonate, which one would stick. And so far, all of them have stuck. I love the coaching aspect where I get to coach. And it's not just fire chiefs and leaders anymore. I'm now coaching firefighters across North America who just need some extra direction, need a little extra support in figuring out, is this the right career for them? Is this the wrong career for them? How do I get to that next level in that career? So many different things that they are struggling with that they just don't have that person to reach out to in a very confidential manner. So they hire a coach. And then the podcasting has been great. We're in season 2. Loving that. It's just a great way to connect with the fire service people across the world, honestly. And then my book is in the second print, Burnt Around the Edges. It's been in the hands of a lot of people across the world and just helping them navigate through burnout. But more importantly, not just the stories of all the bad stuff. It's how to get out of burnout, how to recover, how to thrive once again. And that's really what the book was meant to be. It wasn't a war story. It wasn't all about this is all the bad stuff that happened. It was really about here's the bad stuff, but here's how I got out of burnout. And for me, I'm kind of in probably year 4 or 5 of my burnout recovery. And I honestly think it'll probably be another 4 or 5 of recovering before I feel like I'm 100%. But I honestly feel like I'm thriving every single day for sure.
Well, that's the most important part. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part, that so all too often we go buy or go to the library and get self-help books. And a lot of times those books are basically the author bragging about stuff that just doesn't relate to the people that we deal with. And,
Or something they haven't experienced themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, as we talked about, and we mentioned before we started recording, our mutual friend, Andy Clark, and who's also a coach, a resilience coach, and how much he helped me after the recordings. We had phone conversations, and I learned a lot about myself from Andy, just telling her about myself. So she was able to read between the lines, and I think as I'm almost probably only have 25% left on my second read of your book, it doesn't just, maybe I turned it around, but it wasn't just about burnout. It was about what I was facing with my illness, the autoimmune disorder. And I think that book is just as good for a former firefighter to read, especially because if you're a former firefighter that was not your choice to be former, an injury knocked you out, something else happened. But this book is not I'll tell you what to do. It's more like, I'd like to be your guy and try to follow me on this path. You may not be able to follow every step, but you provide the readers that guide because you've been there. You're not just an author who's gathered tales once here and there. And I remember when this, no, you did the research. You defined yourself in that book, and then you show yourself climbing out of the pit with a relatively long ladder, bringing you to where you are today. And to me, if you are a firefighter, if you're a law enforcement officer, if you're an EMS worker, this book, because we all get burnout. If we look sadly at the our members of all three families, how many we're losing to their own hand when that doesn't have to happen. And I think reading, let's say the second, third, maybe a little bit more of your book, you give us, you light the fire of hope, I think. And not only that, but you're also telling our brothers and sisters, career, volunteer, part pay, any country, not just North America. We have friends in England. I have a firefighter from England who's going to be coming on the show relatively soon. And it gives us I'd say a map of, yeah, you're down here now, but there is a blue sky up above and to get there. And I know that's been very important to me. I probably read
Well,
that
that's
over
kind of been
several times.
yeah, that's the foundation, is to provide people hope, right? Because definitely when you're going through burnout or any other emotional trauma, really, hope is like it's like such a far distant thing, right? It's like, how am I ever going to get better? How am I ever going to get out of where I am now? There's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's just darkness, right? So that is the underlying principle of the book, and everything I do really is hope.
Hope.
So for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you've now you're an international author. What would you say that you're aware of would be the furthest away you've had to send a book?
That would be Australia. Yeah.
Oh,
Australia's, yep.
that is
Yeah.
cool.
So yeah, all the books you can get on Amazon, stuff like that. But I also have a whole bunch in my closet here that I ship out to people all the time. Yeah. And Australia and England would be the two farthest that I've personally sent signed books to. So yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool when you make that. I know the first time that I looked at our stats, I guess this was like 3 or 4 years in, and we had listeners in over 42 countries across 6 continents. And I said, I got to get hold of the fire crew down at Alamogordo, the Alamogordo station in Antarctica, because I want 7 continents.
Oh,
But I
that'd be
haven't been able to
amazing.
reach them. I
Yeah.
tried some emails and stuff, but
Okay.
it gives you that boost in saying, when I started the podcast back in 2016, it was just when we were talking about cancer from the fires we respond to, especially dumpster fires. We always take them as routine. Car fires, we took them as routine. A lot of times we didn't mask up. When I started my volunteer department in 77, we had a VW Beetle that was cooking really hard. The chief never told us to put SCBAs on, so we didn't. But the wind took a snootful. My buddy, still my friend today, I met him as a kid back then. We took a snootful and we were coughing and throwing up and everything. And the chief came over, took us away put the captain on the hose line and said, from now on, boys, for you and everybody else, we're going to be wearing SCBA when we do a car fire. And that changed a lot for people. Some people didn't like it. They still like the freewheel, pull up the boots. But we were already in full bunker gear at that time.
Yep.
But it's because he was a great chief, because he really vested himself in every one of the firefighters. We only had 3 caretakers, so that's the 3 caretakers, the chief, the captain, and the secretary. So there were 6 paid people in that department. Everybody else was a volunteer, and we all loved what we did. yes, we were hazed a little bit as rookies coming in, but we weren't just the two of us. There were 7 people in our group that were voted in that night. And we kind of held together pretty well, but Rich and I started answering a lot of calls because my apartment was less than a half mile from the firehouse. And I was working 80 hours a week too at the synagogue, but if I had that time and I wasn't teaching, boom, if it was a big alarm, I would go. And my secretary knew to cover for me and to take care of. But I never walked out on a class. I never walked out on a private tutoring session because you still have to have your professional standing. You can't just say, well, I'm a fireman, I'm going to put a red hat on and stuff like that. But I think the path that you lay out that you did for me and all these other firefighters you've helped, no matter their rank, because a rookie can learn as much from you in the book as a chief can. And that's a big difference because you're not talking in the book just about chief stuff. You're talking about your personal stuff. Yes, you were a chief, but that's not what your book is about. And I think that's what gives readers more hope, is that this is a book that comes not just from the mind, but it comes from the heart. And we don't see that too often in the fire service. I mean, we read the trades. I've been reading trades since '77. Now with social media and the internet, but you very rarely come across someone who will tell you their personal story and what they found worked for them that may work for you. Because there are no guarantees in life, as we always say. But I think the way you wrote the book was with intelligence and compassion and emotion. And that's what we don't have in fire books or magazines today. Once in a while, we have that sad story, but it shouldn't be once in a while a sad story. We should do frequent stories to bring people up and better, not just cater to those who already are in the abyss. Yes, we want to help them too, but let's help prevent others from falling into that same abyss.
100%. Yeah, like you said, the firefighters reading the book right now are looking at it going, okay, so when I see these things in myself, I know that I'm doing a little too much. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overcommitted. I'm saying yes too much. I am seeing some signs of burnout. And then on the flip side, the fire chiefs that are reading this are going, okay, this is me. Like that's how many I've had so many different people come back and say, you wrote a book about me. That's my life. You just wrote about it. And so for the firefighters, it's all like preemptive. This is something that could happen to you in the future. And the fire chiefs and the officers and the ones that have been around for a long time, 20 plus years, are seeing, all right, this is me. Now what do I do? Right. So it's twofold for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, it was, even though I was sick already a little bit with what I have back when you were last on, the book helped get me out of, yes, I still have bad days. Like I said, 3-day relapse, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I haven't had that in a long time. And that's really plays with your emotions because I had plans to do stuff with the family and in the house and stuff like that. And it's funny because when I'm having a good day like today, I still have to hold myself back. I can't do too much today or I'm going to be sick again tomorrow. And the doctors, they don't know how this autoimmune disorder works. They know what it does, but they don't know how it works well enough. And I said, is there a way? The last time I saw my doctor, I said, we get 2 weeks, but last time I saw my doctor 3 months ago, I said, isn't there anything we can do to help lower the number of these relapse days? And he looked at me with a very sad face and said, sorry, Steve, we don't have that yet. We just don't know. And he says, that's part of the problem of any autoimmune disorder, because all in all, they're relatively new to us, maybe 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years if we're lucky. He says, but there's so many different ones. Everyone's working on something else. So we specialize in yours, but we don't have a good grasp, a talon's grasp on how we can help you. They're trying to help me by giving me medications to prevent it getting worse, because the other things can come from this autoimmune disorder. And it was very tough, but I would read. Sometimes I read a couple of chapters a couple of times at the same night, same reading, just to get myself out of the pit. Because I have a wife, I have two daughters, I have a son-in-law, and my 3-year-old grandson. I have to be with them. I have to be able to be with them, and not just lie in bed and have them come in and say, "Hi, Dad," or "Hi, Grandpa," something like that. That's not fulfilling for me as family is concerned. So, it's not just working in the fire service. As the chief and I talked this before we started recording, I learned, look, as firefighters, we're all going to see traumas. We're going to see them, we're going to experience them. But a mutual friend of ours, who's a former guest on the show, Andy Clark, showed me that one of the biggest traumas I had in my life was when I was disabled out of the fire service. And after 8 years, I couldn't do it anymore. Yeah, they made me an inspector for the last year I was there, which was very nice. It was very, very kind of them to do that, send me to the classes, and when I could patrol on my own time, and unless I was called. Like I was called to the movie theater when Ghostbusters opened up, the original Ghostbusters. And I got a call that there are people sitting in the aisle, sitting on the steps. So I had to get dressed, go up to the theater, check with the ticket office. Yeah, she said, I sold more tickets than we should have. So I went to the manager. I said, this is going to happen. Everybody's leaving the theater. You're going to shut the film down. Everybody's leaving the theater. Those with valid stubs up to this number that she told me can go in. Now those you'll have another showing tonight. He goes, well, I'm not scheduled. I said, you are now. Because I'm not going to punish these people who came and that you let them in against the law. So you're going to receive a citation and you're going to have that second show. Now that night was my first real major thing. That really gave me a boost a little bit. It showed that I guess I did have the ability to command a little bit that I gave myself credit for. And then in 2017, when I got to see the chief for the first time in 25 years, he asked me, do you know why I sent you and Richard to those state fire colleges? We said, Chief, we have no idea. We've talked about it time after time, every year since then. He goes, that's because you boys were going to be my new captains in the volunteer squad. Because I knew from the beginning how you guys dedicate yourself to this department. And I knew that I wanted you guys to get the training at the state fire college to be able to do the job. And he says, I had no concern whatsoever. I knew you'd be two of the best officers we've ever had in this department. And that was an eye-opener as well. All the years later, it was an eye-opener. And when I called, after I left this house, and I called my buddy Rich, he said, are you kidding me? You use a different word that I'm not going to use on the air. But I said, no, I just left this house with sweet tea that his wife always made for us. And I said, Rich, he was as serious, as they come. He was disappointed that we left because Rich got into police work in Washington, D.C. And my wife wanted to start our family, and we didn't have any really support structure in Greensboro. We had wonderful people at the synagogue I worked at, but not a family support structure. And so my parents lived in Boston at the time. My wife's parents were in Albany. So we slept back up to the north. And at least there was another fire department just around the corner from my house. So I was able to join that. But injuries beset me. I blew out a knee. I think I told you on my interview with you, when I fell through the floor of the house, when the kid who was supposed to be backing me up ran outside, and I had the nozzle open full bore. So that was one, and then happened again when I was in the first year outside of Syracuse, and then one more time, and then both my orthopedist and the fire surgeon said, you can't fight fires anymore. We just can't take that risk. You're a great firefighter. You're doing great stuff. And so the chief said, what else can we do? I said, well, back, 6 years ago, I started my own video business. He goes, could you do that with us? He said, not a business. Could you set up a video system for us? And so next couple of months, I did all the shopping and stuff like that. We sent it, we put it in our big rescue because it could trickle charge all the time. Now it's not shooting. I'd go to the scene and videotape, and we'd bring it back for after action reviews. And they hadn't been doing that. And I had already read in Firehouse and Fire Engineering about after action reports. So I convinced them. I said, here, it's right in front of you, chief. And the chiefs were all part-time. They got their cars through the district, the fire district, but they were all volunteers as well. And after the first one, he bought into it. He really liked how much it was able to give us a different view that you can't see when you're fighting the fire.
Oh yeah.
And even if you're an officer, you can't be in every place at the same time. We weren't doing 360s officially back then. We didn't have ticks back then. So now jump ahead nearly 50 years to see that lots of departments across the world are doing after action reports. We're using drones to film our attacks and what we're doing. We're using the ticks. Many are using the ticks. I'm not going to say everyone, because we still have those who think it's an X-ray machine and they don't want to use it. But yet, time after time, with Chief Billy Goldfeder's Close Call series, and even if it's not the one in the magazine, you have to go to the website, firefighterclosecalls.com, because he has provided us with so many lessons to learn when we're on the fire ground that we are not doing. And our good mutual friend, Andy Starnes of Inside Training, LLC. Andy just came back from Europe. Now he's all traveling the United States, teaching the best use for ticks and why they can't sit in the truck when you get on scene. Did your department, by the time you left, did you have ticks in your department?
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 or 4, I think. We had a couple small handheld, just like personal size, and then some big MSA size. Yeah. Oh, we had ticks for at least a decade, at least before
Right.
I left.
And
Yeah.
did you, as the chief, did you find that they were really helpful to help you?
Oh yeah. I would say it wasn't routine that people were grabbing them off the trucks, like you say. It was like an afterthought. Oh, I'll go grab the tick. But as the years progressed, it was part of your tool. You grabbed a tool and you grabbed a tick, and that was it, right? So, oh yeah, invaluable. I would say those are one of the top tools for, especially initial attack team, for sure.
Yeah. Very important. Or even whoever the officer is going to be to make that first 360. Or
Yep,
hopefully
100%.
they can get all 360, but sometimes we can't because of the seaside. We can't get to it. It's a wall or fenced right against the area. But the fact is that those ticks will give that officer, from the line officer lieutenant to the chief of the department, give you a much better vision of what's happening inside and who might be there. And I think people say, well, there's too much heat from the fire. I'll never see a person. You will, because that fire is not going to be mostly down on the floor. That's where the person's going to be.
Yep.
And by the time you get there, if you have fire, the building's already ventilated. That's the problem, because it blew out the window or whatever case it was, or came through the roof. So you still need that tick. While that fire's going up, you need that tick to see if anybody's still left.
Yep.
And, that's again, that was a very good point that former Assistant Chief Kevin Burns, my hometown of Framingham, home city now, it was a town when I grew up there, but Framingham Fire Department. And they have just grown leaps and bounds from these old 1950s engines I saw as a kid growing up to some of the best that our manufacturers are putting out there. But if we don't use the tools, what are we doing as firefighters?
No, not playing smart, that's for sure. Yeah, we had a UAV drone that actually it wasn't ours, but we had access to it with a company that was working very closely with us. that had a tick on it, that had thermal imaging on it. And it was just incredible to see, especially for wildfires or a house fire, just to be able to see the visual as a bird's eye with the tick camera. Incredible. Yeah.
I should also ask, during those big fires there in British Columbia, was the island affected at all?
Recently, in
Yeah,
the last little bit, no, except for smoke. That's about it. So
yeah.
yeah, but
So it
no, yeah,
stayed on the mainland and then
yeah,
come out to the
yeah,
island.
yeah.
That's good. So that didn't
But
probably didn't hurt the cruise ships coming up
no,
besides you on
it's
the way to
been
Alaska.
really bad though. It's been,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
wildfire after wildfire.
yeah. Well, you have the amazing company, begins with C. Air, they do the airdrops, the water drops. They're based in
Uh,
Canada, British Columbia,
Colson.
Colson,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Matter of fact,
Just was it? Yes, it was 2 days ago. They just retired the Mars bomber, which was the one of the best. And
the big yellow
I
one,
don't know.
right?
No, a big red and white one.
Oh, red and white one. Okay.
Yeah. And just a monster and a beast. And it fought so many fires in Canada, but also BC. And yeah, got retired yesterday. Did a big flyover across all of Vancouver Island to its resting home. So yeah.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. But I remember last year I interviewed a deputy chief of Cal LAFD of their air division, and they had the new big Sikorsky's coming in,
Yes.
and they were using two. One was the platform, and one was the looker, and it's and a lot of that was Colson. Their contracts with Colson.
Yes.
And he said it it's invaluable how this helps us with our fires. And sure enough, with the fires they've had in a little bit north of LA, that big fire, I think that was the Park fire, maybe. And then the ones coming up further north, Alameda and San Francisco. Those you could see on the news clips. Those aircraft were up there and making the drops and just creating such a large help for all those people on the ground. And folks, if you're not familiar with WUI or wildland interface, an urban interface, is almost all of these people work on the ground on their feet. They're always marching, cutting, starting small fires to burn off stuff. This is not your regular fire department. That you drive by and you see them, and sometimes they would hit the sign when you wave at them. That's nice. They don't have that. They don't have that. They need the boots on the ground, and they need eyes in the sky. And sometimes they need more, and then they need water. They need rain from the sky, and not always natural rain, but it's the great people at Colson and Cal Fire themselves that work to, and the Canadian Fire Service. I mean, they were stretched the last probably 6 weeks, 7 weeks from
Yep.
almost coast to coast with
Yep.
fires. Yeah.
Yes.
And, yes, Canada's a large country, but it doesn't just go across on a small lateral stripe. It, goes all the way north to almost to the Arctic. So there's a lot of work to be done for them across such a large country. Think of it here. We've had multiple forest fires in the States, but none that actually went from one coast to the other. We're very lucky with that. And who knows, with the climate change that's going on, how that's going to, if that's going to be able to be successful. So let's get in before we take the first break. Let's get into a little bit about some of the issues that have come to your attention, people contacting you. They hadn't read the book yet, but they'd heard about you. We have your email, on guest page for you, and it's still on the podcast. It still rotates through. What are some of the stories that came to you that really touched your heart to the point that you put heart and mind together to put this book and share your own trauma with people who you didn't know?
Well, I guess started off with sharing my own trauma. I really, when I was writing the book, I was like 90% done. I was like, it's done its part for me. It's done everything that I wanted to do. It's helped me get through. It's helped me kind of dump out all the ideas and thoughts in my mind, put it down on paper. That's good. I'm happy with it. And then a little birdie kind of told me, is like, hey, you need to share this with the world. Why keep it to yourself? Share it with the world. So that was kind of my way of sharing my trauma. And really, I had nothing holding me back. Sometimes vulnerability is a hard thing to do. And I think for a lot of my career, it was a tough thing for me to do. But something changed in me when I went through that recovery. I was like, no, I got nothing to hide. I don't care who knows about me. I'm an open book. You can ask me any question about my burnout journey, my recovery, what I did. I'm happy to share that. There's nothing holding me back because I learned so much in the last 5 years that honestly, kind of like the best education I could have ever asked for was the last 5 years. And so going into coaching and podcasting, I meet with hundreds of people a year now, which is incredible, and new people. And a lot of people are struggling 100% in silence, unfortunately. And they're struggling in their own departments, trying to figure out how to navigate the stresses that they're seeing. And it's not trauma that I'm seeing. Maybe because they're seeing a therapist, so they're dealing with their traumas in that therapy kind of realm. For me, it's talking to people who feel like they've lost their mojo, feel like they've lost their steam and their kind of their what they signed up to do as a firefighter. They feel lost as in the direction of, I'm not sure if this is even the right career for me anymore. Um, Historically, we've always looked at the fire service as being one of those things you join and you don't leave until you retire, either forced out or retire at, 55, 50, 60, whatever
Or
that looks like.
disabled out.
Exactly. Yes. And so a lot of people are kind of stuck in that trap. And I would say I was probably in that as well, as like, I signed up to be in the fire service. I'm supposed to be here until the day I hang up my helmet because I've hit retirement age more than anything. And I think my voice saying that it's okay to leave the fire service is really helping people say, hey, maybe I can leave the fire service. I've done my 15, 20, 25, 30 years, whatever that looks like. I got something else to give to the world. And I'm kind of giving them a little bit of permission that it's okay to leave the fire service if it's your time. If it's your time, don't feel guilty, don't feel shame. Those are two big, heavy emotions, guilt and shame. And I know a lot of people feel that when they say, I think it's time for me to switch and do something totally different. And I think if life's short, we're here on this earth for a very short time. If you can enjoy whatever you're doing, do it. And if fire service is not filling your bucket anymore, so be it. Move on to something different. For me, the fire service, as you can see in my background, is still very prominent in my life. And I don't want to let that go per se, but I also want to have a different life. So coaching has allowed me to still be very connected to the fire service as well as writing, but not having to go to those alarms at 2 o'clock in the morning, not having the stress of dealing with the politics side of things, not dealing with the stress of more trauma in my life. I've seen enough trauma. I'm happy I don't need to add any more trauma to my life. And I get to experiment and try something different, right? Like I think part of our life is all about trying new things. The more times we try new things, and if it sticks, great. If it doesn't, hey, you've tried it. You've tested the water. You've stretched your boundaries a little bit out of your comfort zone. Perfect. You've learned something in that aspect. And for me, the last couple of years have been nothing but a stretch for me. Like I've gone into worlds and realms that I would probably never think that 5 years ago I'd be doing. Right. So
Yeah,
it's been a
that
journey.
was,
It's been
yeah.
a
I
journey.
mean, when you were first on with again another mutual friend, Brad Davidson, and you got to read his book now. Just title just went up,
Like Into the Flames, I
Into the
believe.
Flames. Yeah, Into the
Yes.
Flames.
Yeah.
That I don't care how many years you got underneath your belt as a firefighter. His story will amaze and shock you at the same time. It is a very powerful book to see, we all think that, well, we've got some really big stuff in our department. We had a fight. We had a big supermarket that went up. Okay. Well, how would you like to be working in a mine where gases build up and blow up, blowing holes in the factory itself?
Yeah.
So it's these, especially these two books. And I have promoted other books, but these two are the first two I've come across that not only tell you about the basic story of their journey in the fire service, but some of the stuff that they've seen, what they went through, and how it affected them. And I think that that's a key thing that we often don't attach to bringing in new firefighters. It's something we have to talk about, and we'll do so in just a minute right after this break. If you're watching the video, you won't see anything different. If you're listening to the audio, well, you know what will happen. We'll have a couple of public service announcements, and then we'll be right back with our guest, Chief Arjuna George, as we talk about beneath the helmet and some other important information that just might help you as a firefighter, a law enforcement officer, or an EMS employee as well. We'll be right back after these messages. As always, please stay tuned. Hello, and welcome back to this premiere episode for season 9 of 5 Alarm Task Force. And I could not have had the opportunity of having a better guest to join me on this first episode as I have today, Chief Arjuna George. He 24 years with one fire department outside of on the island, Salt Sea Island, right? That was the name?
Salt Spring Island, so
Salt
close
Spring
to
Island.
Vancouver. Yeah, Vancouver,
close,
BC, Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet he dealt as a chief officer, and there are only, to tell you the truth, there are only a few officers I've heard talk about this, like Chief John Vance of B Shifter. He's talked about what it's like to be, and Chief Terry, I forget Terry last name, who's also with B Shifter, talked about what he went through in Glendale and in Phoenix. Yeah, it might look glorious, boys and girls out there who are firefighters and look forward to becoming a chief, but it doesn't come, it may come with more money than a firefighter, but it doesn't come with any less at all of what you dealt with as a firefighter. And tell you the truth, as Chief Arjuna will tell you, there's a big magnifying glass that appears when you become the chief.
Or a fishbowl. Or a fishbowl.
Or a fishbowl, right. Yep. So, Chief, again, thanks for joining us again, and so happy to have you with us. You've taught me a lot. This will be our third interview, and I've learned a great deal from the previous two. And as we mentioned, the first part, on my second read, close to the end of the second read of the book, Burnt Beneath the Edges. And I think it's important that I asked the chief if he'd be okay to talk about, without giving names or anything like that, or location, talk about some of the people who sought him out because they needed help, but they didn't know where to turn. So, Chief, let's talk about that, please.
Well, once again, I feel so fortunate that through coaching and podcasting that I get to connect with so many people. So a lot of my speaking engagements as well have really resonated with a lot of people. And just recently, there's been some, I guess, eye-opening clients that I'm kind of working with. I had one individual who's, a male in the fire service, been in there for, a good decade or so, come up to me at the end, crying in front of the class, essentially, and just saying, I've never heard anyone talk about emotions and being able to talk about your emotions as a man in the fire service. And just kind of broke down right in front of me. And that kind of really resonated with me. Is like, we all have emotions. We're all human. Maybe we don't want to be crying all the time or being sad all the time, expressing those emotions, but we all feel that at some point in our lives. Why is it so taboo to express that? So I think I've had a lot of not just fire chiefs, but a lot of clients over the last couple of years coming to me and not being able to express themselves, not being able to be their true self when they come to the fire station or when they're with their family. They feel like they have to hold something back. They feel like they have to be somebody different than they are. And that was how I felt 100%. I felt that I was not showing up as my true self in the last few years on my job. I felt like I had a bit of a mask on or a bit of a wall protecting me. And that is definitely something I'm seeing a lot of people come to me is that just don't feel like they can come to work and be their true self and be the leader that they want to be because either stress is holding them back, trauma is holding them back, um, just the environment that they're in, the toxic environment that they're in. And unfortunately, the fire service is an amazing organization, amazing part of what we are all a part of, but it does come with some toxic stuff that happens within behind closed doors. And that is a tough thing for people to manage, especially when you become into the supervisor level. So, as an officer or a fire chief, dealing with that inside politics is another stressful thing that a lot of people come to me for. And they don't necessarily come to me for answers per se. They come to me for, I need somebody who I can not unleash, but talk in a very confidential way, talk through some of my challenges that I'm going through.
Sounding board.
Sounding board, 100%. And some people, that's all they need is just somebody they can call, have a 1 hour session with me, and be able to unleash what's going on in their life because they have no one else in their organization who can help them with that. And I find a lot of joy in that. I thought when I first started doing coaching that I would own some of that stress, that I would take on some of their drama, that I would take on some of their challenges they're going through. And I think the coaching and all the training that I did allowed me to just defer that a little bit. Listen, be very active listener, be very empathetic, but not own any of it when I finish working with them. And my old self, I would ruminate about a conversation that I had with people, especially when it was a difficult conversation. I would think about it for days on end. And now, when I finish a coaching session, and no disrespect to the person, I release it, I close my laptop or whatever, shut off my light, and off to something different. And I just find that so freeing that I can now not own other people's stress, because that was part of my issue of going through burnout. Was it wasn't just my stress I was holding, it was all the other people that I felt that I was holding their stress, and I call it my stress plate. And I just kept piling on all their different stressors that they were experiencing as well as mine, and it was just a little overwhelming. So that's been a nice kind of awakening, that I've been able to notice that I can do this work, this important work with firefighters across North America, but not add it to my own stress. So that's been huge. I've coached several people, and not around burnout, but around the challenges, and you know this very well, the challenges of leaving the fire service, either on their own doing or not on their own doing. And a lot of fire chiefs that I know that are coming up to retirement by age are struggling with, now what? Now what do I do? How do I manage this next chapter of my life? Am I going to be bored out of my mind? Am I going to be depressed? Am I going to be sad all the time? Am I what's next for me? I don't understand this. I don't know what to do. And that's where I found coaching to be really powerful, is helping them see the other side of the next chapter and what that looks like. And then there's a lot of people that are very unhappy in the fire service, and they're struggling, but they feel like they're committed and stuck in that fire service. So I help them, coach them, see through that maybe there's areas in their life that they can eliminate by and still stay in the fire service, but it's just some things they got to tweak in their life. Or they come to the realization that, okay, this is maybe not the right fit for me. I thought I had to stay here for the rest of my career, but I do have an option. I do have an option that I can go and do something else. All those fill my bucket whenever I hear people that are gaining some clarity in their life, when they understand their life a little bit better than they did an hour ago. And they're like, okay, now I know I have some options in my life. And once back to our original conversation about hope, that gives them hope. It gives them hope that they have a choice. And I think that is one of the biggest stressors in life, is going through something and you don't feel like you have a choice. If you have a choice, your stress level is greatly reduced. If you don't have a choice, that's when stress, worry, concern, anxiety, all that lives in that area, right? So yeah, it's been a real eye opener to experience all the, and unfortunately, kind of the negative aspects of the fire service, the downsides to the workloads that we're experiencing, the overtime that we're experiencing that are forced upon the firefighters, the lack of leadership, the lack of mental health care, the lack of suicide prevention or awareness. All these things are coming to, shining a light on it that I was not fully aware of how deep it was. I thought maybe this was a local thing. I thought this was something that maybe I just experienced. But no, it's global, all these challenges. And once again, the fire service is an amazing place, but we do have some work to do, 100%, for sure.
Right. And I think as you were telling us and talking about that, I was thinking back, we've had females in the fire service for well over 30 years now.
Mhm.
A lot of departments are still very, very slow. And when they, quote, air quote, have to admit female, they do, oftentimes, they do a lot to make her life hell, because it's a macho man's job. It isn't. And especially today, with the dearth of successful recruitment. We have women who can qualify, do the PAT test and get through it and know their stuff, and they should be equal level. Their pay should be equal level, and they should be looked at as any other firefighter. Yes, we all go through a probe a year. There's no doubt about that. Okay, that's part of our history, but it has to also be a polite and correct methodology of hazing. Okay, we don't use real hazing anymore. Chief Rubin talked about this several times. He had a big poster that he put in one of the fire departments he was chief at. He says, "You won't do this, you won't do this, you won't do this." By the PS, if you do, bye-bye.
Yep.
And that went for anything from how the women were being treated, how other firefighters are being, same guy, same shift. All of a sudden, they're tearing at each other's throats. And he said, that doesn't, because I'm not going to stand for that. We're here, we have one job to do: protect lives and property. And when you come through those doors, that's all you better be doing, is being ready for saving lives and property. Yet, the concept of a man having an emotional weakness, then he's castigated. If anybody else finds out, hey, what's the matter, crazy guy? Can't hack it here anymore? And that's always going to be the guy who thinks he's the lone wolf.
He's probably the one hurting the most.
Probably, it could be, yeah. And he's also the one when the chief says, "All right, that's enough, just knock it off, I don't want to hear this anymore," we'll go and do it again. The next shift, they'll go and do the same thing. So, and as we talked about, mentioned in the first segment, is that we are losing too many of our brothers and sisters in their, to their own, excuse me, I'm sorry that I shut down the mail. So when
You got mail.
go try that, yeah. Coming up, and I think it's this week or next week, will be Jeff Dill, former fire captain. And Jeff is director of the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance. And he tracks, Jeff is the only one individual who tracks every LODD, line of duty death, LODI, and suicide in the fire service. And a lot of you, after one of the first times Jeff was on, somebody wrote to the email and said, "Nah, that can't be, that's not firefighters doing that. It's going to be something else, somebody else." And the next time Jeff was on, I had kept that email. And he said, oh, so-and-so, you're wrong. And the fact is that he has the details of how many of our brothers and sisters. He doesn't have all the details. He has some of the information because so many of our brothers and sisters are afraid to come forward to anybody they know that they're having the problem. But I think the fire service, as hard as we fought now to get PFOA, PFOS out of our bunker gear, everything we've done to make everything we do more safe, then we need to know that we don't have robots working in our fire departments, our police departments, or our EMS. We have living, breathing human people with beating hearts who have, many of them have their family, whether it's their family or they live with their, still live with their parent family, whatever. And they don't need to be beaten up any more than they feel. And that's why they need the ability. There should be somebody, even if it's the department chaplain, that they can go and talk with and get everything that's building up in them off their chest. Because if we don't do that, and we just keep piling it up deeper and deeper, they're going to be a statistic with Jeff Dill.
Yeah.
And we've already lost this year a lot. This year alone, police and fire suicides are very high, higher than they've been before. And here we are only in August.
Yeah. And we're just,
yeah. And we just think, well, we'll put it behind. Don't look at the man behind the curtain, the old Wizard of Oz thing. If you don't look at it, it won't bother you. Well, that's BS. You and I both know that. And so do they. Those who are feeling that way are afraid to come forward because they don't know a neutral party they could talk with. They don't think about their own. If they are involved in a religion, then they don't think about, well, you can go to your priest, minister, rabbi, imam, whatever you need. They're there to help you. You don't have to take a gun or take pills to solve your problems. Believe me, I know. I've had those feelings. As you mentioned, when you go out of the fire department, not because you want to, but because you have to. Not because you're fired, but like me, you wind up being disabled out. And that, you know what it does? Yes, I had a bad knee, and that's what stopped me. But when that happened, I felt like I was cut off at the knees.
Well, for myself, I could have easily gone back to the fire service. I had the choice to go back. And I think that's why I kind of came out of it so well, is because I had that choice versus like yourself, where you were forced to. I was in one element, I was forced to retire because I felt like I was not the person I used to be in showing up to be the high performer, the leader that I wanted to be. But I still had that choice. I could have gone back to work and just, put another 5 years in and maybe died on the job. Who knows, of a heart attack or due to stress, or I could have just been miserable for another 5 years. Who knows? But I had that choice. And I think that's the key part, once again, is that choice, right? And I had the choice of saying, okay, it's time for something different, right?
Well, when friends like Nick and Andy, who first picked me up on, and Joe DeVito, who's an acolyte of Andy. Joe is gone. Matter of fact, it's funny, the first Great Florida Fire School that he invited me to, when I got to the hotel, I went right to his classroom. He was teaching tick information.
Yeah.
And I was taking notes like I was a firefighter. I filled 4 pages in my notebook, just writing down stuff Nick had said. I secretly correlated it with Andy to make sure it was right. But no, I didn't. I love Joe. He also was one of the first ones and said, look, I'm just across the peninsula from you. You're going to come over. Let me know if I come over to the east side often. Let me know if you want to meet, and I'll let you know. And he's been a dear friend. John Dixon, John Haywick, all these guys I met the first time at that fire conference. And Joe did the thing that I never expected. On the Tuesday of the conference, which had started on Saturday, we're in the hotel lobby, and he sees me and comes over around, and he asked me to take some photos and videos while I was there, because that's what I do too. What I did. And he came and he put his arm around my shoulder. And he whispered to me, "Hey, Steve, you feel like a firefighter again?" I said, "Yeah, kind of." And he slapped me on the back and says, "That's the reason why I brought you into this. I didn't need you to take pictures of movies. I
Right.
wanted you to be with us."
Nice.
That was 2017.
Nice.
And I got knocked out in 85.
Mhm.
So we're talking
That's
over,
pretty awesome.
35 years. And I've visited other firehouses and, told them I'm a former firefighter. I still have my badge with me. And as I think I've expressed both in the interview with you and your interview with me, that ever since that day in 85, I've kept the full BLS complement in my vehicle. Matter of fact, although I'm supposed to be demonstrating them, I carry two of the Nesta bars, or the pry guy levers. I have a full one in the back, and I have the handy tool in it. I just haven't been well enough to go visit some of the stations to show it to them, especially the handy ones, because people really love that now. But I think that we have to understand that when somebody is forced out of the department, especially on disability, we don't think our injury is that bad. Been there, done that. I said, "No, I'm good. I can do it again." I said, I'll go through another surgery. My orthopedist is right down the street from the firehouse. He'll get me back in and do it." And I made the appointment with him, and he was a close friend from the synagogue as well. And he said, "I'd love to do it for you, Steve, but I can't give you any guarantees." He says, "You've got so much damage in that left knee. I can go in there, I can reset some of the things, but I just can't guarantee you that that leg's not to give out. And I don't want to give out at the wrong time, in the wrong place." He says, "You've been a friend, since you got to the synagogue. You've helped me out, my family, a couple of things. Because I'll do anything to help you that I believe is medically necessary and will work. But I can't give you my doubt. That would be unfair to you. Because you know that 2 days later, you go out on a call and your leg will give out and you fall down a bunch of steps."
Yeah. That
And
must have been super challenging.
it was. I was in the top 10% of responders as a volunteer, even though I worked 8 hours a week, 80 hours a week. But I felt it was my commitment to the community. It was a town, and there was the village of DeWitt in one town, and then the town of DeWitt. So our fire department was contracted to the town, but we were actually the department of the village. And I had some good friends in there, but I also had a lot of people came in who didn't like me because I came in from North Carolina with what was then firefighter 1 and 2 from a state fire college. Then I did hydraulics and engineering, passed that, and then I did high level rescue, which for me was amazing since I was acrophobic from the time I was 5 years old. But we went up to a 6-story building, and they said, "If you want to think about the officers class next year," hadn't even thought about that. But I knew I wanted to challenge myself. And I did. I was both a rescuer and a patient in the Stokes. And I didn't know what next year was going to be at that point. I still thought we were staying. But I felt accomplished that I went to that school and was successful. But when I came in and showed my cards to the chief, he says, "We don't work that way." So, "Excuse me?" Because you'll have to do everything from scratch here. Chief, with all due respect, I was not accredited by the chief of my department. I was accredited by the state of North Carolina Department of Fire and Rescue. I don't care. So started at the bottom and basically stayed there. I wanted to learn how to drive the apparatus. I drove a tanker, 3,000-gallon tanker. I drove a 750-gallon brand new Pierce. They didn't have the new one yet, that they call it now, but I think it was the Enforcer, maybe back in that day. And high level rescue. In our rescue truck. So I qualified for all three. The only thing they would let me drive there was a Suburban. to either bring some more firefighters to the scene or hook on the plow and plow the driveway. 4 years there. That's as far as I was able to accommodate. I was nominated for an assistant chief twice. Only my friends voted for me. Everybody else wouldn't even cast a vote. Where was the quote unquote brotherhood back then?
100%.
You
Yeah.
know,
I
and
hear that often.
Yeah.
The brotherhood is a word that we talk about, the brother sisterhood, but in reality, it doesn't always pan through, especially when people are off, either on light duties or off for an extended time, long-term disability. They feel that brotherhood, sisterhood's kind of vanished. And then also, I hear that from a lot of people who are retired from the fire service. They're like, "Hey, I was part of this for 30 years, and now I retire," and crickets. Never
Right.
hear from anyone from the fire service once again, right? So I know people change, life changes, but it definitely is something that I think we're all expecting as firefighters is to have that brother sisterhood until the day we die. And that's not always the case, right? So
Right, exactly. I was just going to mention that one of the reasons why I started the podcast was number one, because Joe and Andy and Nick and a couple of others were saying, we've been reading your posts on social media because you should be doing something more. You got that background in radio and TV. I said, well, what do you think? Start a radio station? What do you want me to do? I can't do
yeah,
that. And they said, no, why don't you do a podcast? I said, okay, that's a good idea. What's a podcast? And they told me what it was.
yeah,
And I started doing research in it. And I figured, you know what? I carry my BLS pack. And I stop in at firehouses, say hello all the time. Oftentimes I'll bring a tray of cookies or something for them. I said, maybe they're right. Maybe this would be a way to contact other firefighters and maybe let them talk about what they're interested in. And that's how I started it. And I said, okay,
9 seasons ago.
9 seasons ago. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I never, as I said, I hoped that maybe I'd get 5 to 10, maybe 12 firefighters listening to the podcast. And within the first 3 months, I had hundreds. And I'm going on social media saying, what's going on? What? He says, we're just helping you. We want people to listen to the people you bring on because we like the guests that you've had. I mean, I was lucky enough, thank goodness, to have Chief Bruno as a guest on my show.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was very lucky to have the late Chief Bobby Halton on the show. 3 hours. And people said, well, how are you going to, he's amazing. I said, yeah. How are you going to edit it? I said, edit it? You think I'm going to try to edit Bobby Halton, the guy who can tell you what page, what paragraph, and how many words in from the margin a word is that he likes to apply to fire service? I said, no editing. It's going on cold just the way it is. And it was a big hit.
Beautiful.
It was a big hit. And so that's when I really started feeling that I had to search out guests that contribute to the topic of being firefighters. And I had hoped it would grow beyond to EMS and law enforcement. I just didn't have those connections to make it work there. But once people found out, and I'd say the first 2 or 3 years, most of my contacts I solicited them. I saw them, they wrote an article for one of the trades. I really liked it, intrigued me. I had some questions. So I'd write to them an email. I'd say probably 60, 70% responded and came on the show. And I was so lucky. I felt blessed that, I had this new connection back to the fire service. And I've tried to maintain that. And I'm very proud of the quality of guests that we brought on and how each one, whether they talked about health and fitness, matter of fact, Kevin, Dan Kerrigan, and Captain Jim Moss are going to be joining me again this season as well.
Oh, good. Excellent.
Talked about, yeah, and they've been on several times, but they are always right on the edge of what's best physically Not always emotionally, but they do touch emotional stuff too. But physically, be firefighter so that you don't strain yourself. So you have your energy and stuff like that. Aaron Zamzow talks about nutrition and health and wellness. He'll be on, I think, in 2 weeks. So those are the people that I brought on. And people say, why you choose all these other people? It's because I don't know all this stuff. I don't know it. I know about it, but I don't know what it's really all about and how it works. So I'm going to have somebody else on to do it. And I also guess like I got Chief Fennessy last season from LA County Fire Aero Division, who taught me something I didn't know. I only saw on TV with helicopters dropping water on LA County, or we watched it on Emergency. They had those emergency. We're in the gully. Can you get the chopper to fly over us? And everybody took cover. And yeah, I think that's all well and good. But I needed somebody to explain how LA County set up that air division. And that's when I learned about Colson as well. I probably had seen their name on newscasts and stuff like that before. Never gave it much thought until Chief Fennessy told me that. And it was a fascinating show to learn everything that they do. And I was reaching out again, but then the fires broke out.
Right.
So I have the chief on LinkedIn together, but I need to see if I can, when things calm down, if I can get him to come on the show again, because that teaches people as well. And I think
100%.
Being a lifelong teacher since I was 13, that's what I want to do. I can't teach it, but I can find people who can teach in, an hour and a half, 2 hours, who can teach them something enough to put that worm and get that hook in their mouth that they want to learn more about it. That's
the beauty. 100%. I learn from something from every person I speak to. I always take away some nugget from an interview I do or a person I coach. There's always something I learn personally, which is pretty beautiful, right? So
it is. And I love. That's why it was a hard choice to maybe decide that this had to be the last season, unless my health gives me a little bit of a kickback to do it. But I love learning. I love teaching too, but this is not a topic I can teach.
Yes.
I can tell what I went through, and maybe they can learn from that. But again, that's 50 years ago. We had 150. Talk about the reflection between today and then. We had at least 150 5-gallon pails of AFFF from 3M in our storage facility because our chief was at that time one of the leading fuel fire experts in the fire service in the country. And so I was lucky. The only time I got any AFFF near me was hit my boot on my boot toe on. I was actually videotaping up at the burn pad at the airport, and we had bought a new device called Chemical 39, where we had huge one giant tank of AFFF, and the other was Purple K. Now I said, "What's Purple K? Isn't that a cereal?" And the chief said, "No," or as he would say it, "No, Mr. Green, this is going to help us put out flammable fires faster than anybody else." Well, in the time that I stayed at the department until we wound up having to move, we only had 2 calls with it. But the fact was that the fuel depot in our fire district at that time was the second largest finished product tank farm in the nation at that point. So it wasn't until I think it was the late 90s, and one of my good friends who was my mentor at that fire department, and he's mentioned in my book, the first book, the one that's only electric. Did I ever send you the electronic one?
Yes. Yeah. I have the PDF of that one.
Yep. Right. And did I send you the script for the pilot script for the TV show, Cause and Origin?
I don't think so, but I do recall you talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll send that out to you.
Sounds good.
But it I knew that there was a limit a line I should not cross. As far as talking with firefighters. I can't tell them what they know. And they know a lot more than I do. So I knew that the best way to be a host is to be the moderator, not an MC. And let my guests do the talking. And I just ask questions that I believe listeners would want to hear, especially listeners in the fire service. Because a lot of the guests, thankfully and luckily, were names in the fire service. And if they read either of the trades, they were pretty sure to know who they were. I guess it was, I just didn't have any fear about writing a cold email to somebody saying, hey, would you like to be on? And, it was like when I booked Brad, and then he said, well, I have this friend who just is writing a book also. I said, was he in Canada? He goes, yeah. He's over outside of Vancouver. He said, would you mind? I said, no, if he's a firefighter and writing a book, yeah. And that's how we met through Brad. And, reading Brad's book also, as it with yours, it gives you a perspective that you don't often see or hear about. He does not hide the fact of there was fear on calls that he entered, especially ones in the mine, especially where the big smelting room was. And he had, that fear was well founded because of what he writes in the book of what happened several times. Thank God he was in the room when several of these occurred and survived almost unscathed. But if people don't read that book, they don't know what other firefighters are going through. And both of your books talk directly to the reader. There's no boasting in these about, well, I did this for 40 years and I knew everything there was to know about firefighting. I actually brought some new tactics in. Maybe, I don't know, but I don't care about that. I care about somebody who wants to teach by being on the show and share their knowledge with other firefighters to understand that it's not the golden life that we think it is. When we're little boys and girls, I want to be a fireman when I grow up, or I want to be a firefighter, or but once you get in there, it's a totally different road than, sometimes it's a good road, like my first apartment. It was a great road. Second apartment was so-so. I had some friends there, but it just wasn't welcoming. And I think that, especially today, with our difficulties with retention and recruitment, as Chief Tony Correa always corrects me, it's not recruitment and retention. It has to be retention first. Because if we can't keep our own firefighters with us, how are we going to attract new people in there?
So true. So true.
And as he says, use your own people to be your sellers, the salesperson. Have a firefighter say to his friend, hey, why don't you come watch us in drill night one night and see? And I thought that was a brilliant idea.
That's how I started.
Yeah. So it's, I think that we have to understand we're not hiding the man behind the curtain anymore. Firefighters, law enforcement, and our EMS colleagues all go through the same crap that we go through. They all see horrible trauma. They see ununderstandable tragedy. And just like us, it accumulates. Actually, when you think about it, this is the virtual PFAS that we deal with, which is the emotional. When we see these traumas, I remember the first time maybe I was a member for 6-8 weeks, a terrible auto collision, a big Lincoln town car into a small Volkswagen, family of 4, parents in front, 2 little kids in the back. We had to take those kids out basically with a hose. And when we got back to the firehouse, I threw up. I was fine on the scene, kept my cool. But once it hit me, I was in the locker room and puking my guts out. And this guy was drunk. We found him under his dash, as often happens. As I'm sure you've seen it plenty with DUIs.
Mhm.
And we had to use the come along because we didn't hurt. There was only one Hirsch tool at that point in time, and it was in the vehicle of the EMS director. So he would have to bring it from wherever he was at to the location. So we used come along, got him up, and he gets up and starts screaming and yelling, "You damaged my car. This is my car. It's a, $30,000 car." And I said, "You want to see what you did?" He goes, "Yeah, what did I do? I did nothing. I maybe swerved into the curb." So the trooper who was on duty that night was a good friend of ours. He always came for coffee in the station, whether the morning shift or evening shift. And he grabbed the guy, brought him over to the VW, and he shoved his head into the window. The parents were still there. And he said, "This is what you did." And the two little girls are dead and we took them out with a hose. Then he starts getting up and the trooper slammed him against the car, put him into cuffs, threw him into the cruiser, and he wound up with 18 years for DUI and DUI manslaughter.
Yeah, terrible.
And we see that, but the troopers saw it, and the EMS people, when they came, they had to deal with it.
Mhm.
So it's not just us. It's not just firefighters, our colleagues, our comrades. And I don't, maybe we don't use the club or the brotherhood or sisterhood anymore, but we are colleagues and we are comrades because we often, very often are all working together on the same scene.
Sure.
And we have to realize that we all are human. None of us are robots. We're not AI. I don't even like the thought of AI. I'm not into putting it on any of my computers because I don't trust it. I just don't trust it at this point. But we all deal with this. And it's time that you get yourself in front of the mirror at home, as my dad taught me when I was in college. And I did a paper in anthropology. I probably was in the library 12, 13 hours to learn the stuff and look all the stuff up and bring it. And I only got a C+ from my teacher. And, my dad called that night to see how things were. I told him. He says, it was C+. He goes, "So what's the matter with that?" I said, "Dad, I'm an A student." He says, "Buddy," my nickname, he says, "you got to remember something. At your high school, you were one of the top students. But now you're in a school with students from all over this country and all over other countries around the world, the Brandeis." He said, "Maybe in this anthropology class, you are a C+ student. What were all your other test marks this first semester?" I said, "They were all A's and A minuses." He goes, "So in all that, you did great." He says, "So don't condemn yourself because you got a C+. And he says, "Let me ask you one question though." I said, "Did you look in the mirror and ask that guy in the mirror if you did your best to prepare for that paper?" I said, "What is that?" Because that guy in the mirror knows every single secret you have. And he will answer you whether you prepared or not. And I said, "Well, I didn't, Dad, but I felt very confident that I did everything I could do to do this. I have 2 notebooks of notes and everything specifically on the topic for the anthropology test." He said, "That's it. I'm not upset with you, and your mom's not upset with you. You were C+ that class, but look at the other A's you have. That's what's important. Don't look at that." And from that, I learned that if we're not true to ourselves, we're not truthful to anybody else.
No.
And
And so many people, including myself, ignore those, not necessarily warning signs, but ignore listening to our bodies, listening to our minds, looking into that mirror, right? We just kind of ignore that part of what we're trying to do.
Close the curtains. Close the curtains.
Yeah, exactly. But if you
mirror.
look into that mirror, like you say, like you're gonna get a wealth of information about yourself, right?
You really do. You really do.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think that if everything you're doing, and if we, in the American Fire Service, together with our brothers and sisters in Canada, we can bring humanity back to the job.
It's my
Because
mission.
that's what's missing. The
That's my
humanity
mission.
of it. We're great on
Yep.
a scene. We're great helping a family, helping accidents. We're terrific. We're pros at that. But we don't know how to
100%.
take care of each other. You
100%.
know, families can have disagreements. We all do.
Mhm.
You know, we have
Yep.
little spats and stuff like that. But we can have a little difference of opinion in the firehouse. But we have to learn that we are one. We were actually one body working together to protect our communities. And maybe
Yeah.
we can get that message across. I don't
Yep.
want to take customers away from you, but I think, but I think what you're doing, and the more we get your name in the US as well,
Mhm.
and promote everything you're doing, that will convince several dozens of our brothers and sisters to take stock of themselves and say, am I really happy with my total life?
Mhm.
Or is there something impinging that's giving me that
Something
little
missing.
little ache every time? And
Totally.
if we can get them to admit that they're human. And I think I only started again with several of these relapses in the last couple of months. I never watched it when it was initially on the air, the show 911. But I found that since Emergency, Chicago Fire I don't watch, especially after the Chicago Fire Department's advisor walked off the set, because he goes, this is not our fire department. So he goes, you're on your own, because we're not doing part of it. And some of the other ones, Station 19, again, same thing. It's all about the interpersonal love stories.
Dramas.
That,
Yeah.
that's not with us. That's not who we are.
Yeah.
But if we can convince them, so I found in that show 911, the new captain comes in with a checkered past. But as far as realistic of what they can do today medically, and what we can do to help our patients when we deal with them, I think it's a big win, because it really represents who we are and what we do. And yeah, they have interpersonal workings in the department that aren't all sweet, sweet and buttery. And I think that's important to show, because that's real life. And the writers do an excellent job. They have several advisors helping them. It's based as LAFD. And I think they did that because they didn't want to look like they were copying LA County Fire from Emergency. But again, nobody can deny the fact of what the TV show did for fire and EMS. It,
100%.
listen, even before that, Adam 12 did the same thing for police service. They brought more police officers to the rank and file in this country. And I think that we know by fact that Emergency did the same thing for us. That's what tickled my fancy, because in high school I wanted to be a doctor, but then I had an explosion of hydrochloric and sulfuric acid at the science fair I was doing it, and a woman was too close to the table. I had a little signal light to stay 5 feet back from the table as the light was on. And she kept coming right up to the table with her daughter. And I said, ma'am, please, this is dangerous stuff. So she pushed back, and then I started doing the mix, and she came close. And at that same time, I saw a piece of the rock salt get jammed in the thistle tube. And I saw the stuff coming up. So I just threw myself over the table and pushed them down. But I took the full blast in my face. And I was running around, acid. And the teacher, it was in the cafeteria. So the teachers took me into the teacher's cafeteria and put my face under the water. And they called the ambulance. But my town, Framingham, didn't have an ambulance. So I was in the backseat of a station wagon police cruiser. They rushed me to the hospital. And my mom was in Israel visiting my older brother, and my dad I hated bothering him because he had a heart condition since age 44. And I didn't want to excite him or get him to be worried. But he came down. He was a trooper at the ER waiting for me and stuff like that. But I learned. I said, no, I don't think I want to do that. I think I want to go back to. I want to be a rabbi again. And that didn't work either. But it took me to a deeper educational level, and to me that was great, because I became a regular teacher. Then I became the principal of a religious school in Greensboro. That's what brought me there. And I learned so much that way. because now I wasn't watching a TV program or reading a magazine. I was living with other firefighters. I was working with other firefighters who were doing it out of the goodness of their heart, like I was. And that just really opened my mind. And that's where I got my love, was that department for the fire service. And yeah, we did some dangerous crap in those days. And we saw even worse crap. And anybody in this job is going to see that. So if you think, well, you know, I'm in the academy, I can't wait to get on there and get those traffic accidents and MVCs and those big burning. Don't be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Be careful what you wish for, because as Chief George has said in this podcast, and I'm telling you as a witness and a victim, it's a lot different than you think. Some stations and departments are going to welcome you with open arms, and they're going to, yeah, you'll have your probie time, but they'll treat you like a gentleman. They'll treat you like a firefighter. You'll be, a few things, you know, got to clean the toilets. All right, we all go through that. That's nothing new. It's not probably going to change until we don't even need toilets anymore. Then you won't have to do that. But we have to learn that while people think we're heroes, we only do heroic things, but we're not heroes. We're humans who have a passion to help other people. Our police officers, same thing. They don't think they're the judges in the courtroom. They're out there to help keep law and order and keep us safe. And our EMS people, brothers and sisters, without them, our two jobs might even not be worthwhile, because they're the ones, after we start care, they're the ones who get them to the hospital and make sure they're being taken care of. So we are a family.
Yeah.
All three
I was just
branches.
going to say, just think of Joe's comment there about retention versus recruitment. We need to get that message out there so people understand that when they join the fire service, there is going to be some challenges. It's not going to be a cakewalk through the whole career. And that is, if you're upfront about that, you're honest about that in the very, very beginning when they were joining the recruit school, they're going to have a longer retention because they understand all that. They're not going to be surprised down the road that there is going to be some internal politics. There is going to be some trauma. There is going to be these different elements that you're going to see. Instead of just sugarcoating and saying this is the best job in the world, we need to be a little bit more honest. And I think if we can promote the human side, like you said, I think that's going to attract people. So that's going to help us build that recruitment and retention, because people want to be part of a human organization. They don't want to be part of somewhere who's, you know, it's bullying, harassment left, right, and center, or, you know, just a unhealthy work environment. They want to be in a healthy work environment. And if you can bring the human element to it, you're going to see retention and you're going to see recruitment.
Right, exactly. And I think that what we're looking at is we're offering a new view for people coming into the fire department, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not sugarcoating it anymore. We have to give them the real lowdown what it's going to be. Some of them will have some difficulties at the beginning. And if you treat them correctly, they're going to want to stay and do the work with you. What I'd love to see, and we'll finish off with this, I would love to see us having a cadre of people trained like you are, who travel for a minimal fee, come in and talk to a shift or a department, depending on the size, stuff like that. And talking about, not castigating anybody, not you, just talking in general about what this job is doing to us. And I just realized my logo is backwards right now. The camera switched it.
Good on my end.
Oh, maybe it's just on my end. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's good on my end.
But imagine the advancements we could make. If we could get train people out there to travel and speak with departments. You know, you take this zone, you'll do this zone, stuff like that. I think it's going to be a tough sell to a lot of departments.
Well, my goal is not to diminish what the fire service is. My goal is not to talk trash about the fire service. My goal is not to say don't become a firefighter because you're going to end up with trauma or a stress or burnout. Exactly. My goal is to, here's the tool so you have a healthy, happy long-serving fire service career. That's my
Right.
goal.
And that's
I
what,
want people to enjoy the fire service. I don't want them to leave the fire service. I don't want them to, unless that's not healthy for them.
right.
But if it's healthy for them and they're happy, I want them to have the best experience ever. Right.
Yeah. There would have to be a big group of people to do it, especially your country, our country, and then maybe other countries are going to get wind of it. But I think if we set our mind to it, and I'm not sure how to do it, but you might, but how to get trained people to go out there and help them. And I think what I'll do is I'll also, when oh, first thunderstorm already. It's very early. But if I'm going to put Jeff Dill in touch with you, because I think, because he talks about the behavior, health, and wellness. I think
He was on my podcast.
Oh, he was.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, so you
yep.
know him already.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. I know Jeff.
oh,
Yep. Yep.
oh,
Yep.
okay, great. Oh, that's wonderful, because
Yep.
I'm trying to think who else would really benefit from talking with you. And I think because Jeff's
Yep.
going to be on.
No,
with you. Oh,
he's
that's
a great guy.
wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah.
he that's, I'm saying, he's one of those people who does it now.
Mhm.
And maybe the two of you put minds together, and
Yep.
I just
No, he's a
love
good
the
guy.
idea of being able to go into a department and say, how do we feel?
Oh.
That's the first question.
Well, I'm
Oh,
kind of experimenting with this new thing that I'm going to be doing this spring with this one department. I'll leave their name out of it at the moment because it's not
sure.
confirmed, but I'm going to spend 48 hours with this one department, living, sleeping, everything with them, going to calls. And it's going to be a Beneath the Helmet podcast on the road. And so I'll be interviewing all the firefighters about everything under the sun. What's working for them and leadership wise, what's not working, what are they doing for their own well-being, what are some of the challenges, what are the recruitment challenges, what are the career challenges, and it's all going to be recorded. So the whole thing's going to be documented. And I'm hoping that I can do more of these 48-hour shifts with other departments and kind of get that real on the ground experience, stories in a confidential space as well at the same time.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's going to be quite the thing to do.
I think it would be great.
Yeah.
Are you going to
Yeah.
be shooting the video? You have a
Yeah.
videographer?
No,
You're good?
I think I'll do the first one and see how it goes for sure. Yeah. I'll just have multiple cameras set up and
Yeah.
different angles and yeah. So yeah, that's a bit of an experiment I'll be doing in the new year, in the spring, but allowing myself to be with this crew, like embedded there with them for 48 hours, I think it's going to be pretty special. So
I think so too. So
yeah.
this is not going to be your last appearance on Five Alarm Task Force. I got to have you back after the spring, after
Awesome.
you do it, and because
Yeah.
I'd love to hear the results.
Yes.
Again,
Yeah.
we don't have to talk about the name of the department. Maybe they don't care by then, but fact is, what you've gone through, what you've seen, that's
Mhm.
you sharing that would be,
That'd be fun.
a great, I don't want to say coup, but it would be a great podcast to hear
For sure.
that you put yourself in that position
Mhm.
to see how that particular department is doing, how their people are.
Yep.
Are they shift work? So I got to ride with two shifts, or just the same people department. But I think that's invaluable
Yep.
to
I
help
agree.
in this effort and
Yep.
bring it. So I don't know how. I'm gonna see if I can come up with some ideas how to create the cadre too, that
Yeah.
people who
Mhm.
are willing to be trained, because in my mind, I don't think the majority of our officers and chiefs today even understand. They may feel it and they don't admit it, but are feeling the same thing that you felt.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that I think that if we can show them that we're all human,
Mhm.
we're still human, we still have foibles, we have good things that we do, we've done some bad things,
Mhm.
not so nice things, but that doesn't mean we can't improve.
Yep.
Yep.
100%.
And I think that'd be a phenomenal task, a huge task. Probably need investors for that one, but I think they'd get their return on the investment. The ROI would be within a couple of months, I'm sure. Because
Well, every presentation I do, every keynote I do, every workshop I do, it's always around bringing back the human aspect into the job. I think that is the key, honestly. Because like you said, we're experts at all these tactics. We're experts at auto extrication, rope rescue, structure fire, but we're not so good at the interpersonal. And that's where a lot of the stress comes from. Honestly, it doesn't come from all the calls.
Right.
We have the tools to manage those calls. We have the tools to manage that trauma that we experience. And some people say, oh, the more we talk about trauma, the more people are going to say, well, I don't want to ever join the fire service because I'm being told I'm going to get PTSD. I'm like, no, you're not going to get PTSD. You might see trauma, but we have tools that can allow you to process that versus getting PTSD. And some people will get PTSD, yes,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean right across the board you're guaranteed to get
Right.
PTSD by joining the fire service.
Right. I mean, I never even felt mine was PTSD. I just knew
Oh,
that I had an ache in my heart.
yeah,
Because I had to stop,
exactly.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but it didn't. Well, Andy would disagree with me. I said it didn't rule my life, but it has
Mhm,
in times.
for sure.
But you know, I'm at that age now where I still want to try to look ahead before I have to look back
Mm.
uh, again. So
Well, there's
I
something special about the fire service. There's something special that grabs us when we first join, and it's hard to let go of, 100%.
yeah,
And that's why I'm still doing what I'm doing, even though I'm not in the fire service. And like you, there's something special about the fire service that is in our blood for sure.
in the past week, I've heard the phrase that I picked up years ago: "Once a firefighter, always a firefighter,"
Yep.
and I've heard it on television 3 times in the last 10 days.
Mm.
Um, but I like it
Yep. It's true.
because we are. I don't think I know a retired firefighter who didn't love his or her time in the fire service, even having to deal with the problems that came along with it. But they felt they still loved it. I'm glad I was there. I'm glad I did what I did for as long as I could. And you also, I think we need to teach some of our firefighters some of the quotes that Chief Vance and the team at B-Shifter do about what the late Chief Bruno was teaching us. He wasn't teaching us tactics. He wasn't teaching us how to throw a 35-footer, okay, or how fast to get the tank filled
Yep.
in the drop tank. He was teaching us how to be humans to do our job.
Mhm.
And, you know, some people, I remember calling him soft. You know, he's an old guy now, he's soft. That morning before he passed away, and he was going to the airport, he knew then, that day, more than probably 85% of the firefighters in this country.
Yep. Oh, he's an
And,
amazing man.
and same with Chief Bobby Halter. Same
Yep.
thing. Great man, great mind, and a great leader. Yeah, he could be cursed sometimes, or give you a terse reply. That didn't make him a bad guy. He didn't start off as the chief of department. He just said, "Okay, I'm 21. I'm going to be a chief of department now." No, he went through everything that we've gone through, everything over those years till he was named appointed chief. Both of those men taught us basically good firefighters life. Now, even though some of it's old, we're able to meld it to what we know today, and we can bring those two philosophies together to help our members of the fire service in our countries and hopefully other countries to feel better about what they do, why they do it, and about themselves doing the job. Okay. And like you
Yeah,
said,
just
you don't sugarcoat it when you talk. You
Yep.
give them the real deal. Because if you go to just to pacify somebody, it'll never stick. It'll never stick.
well,
But
just
when you,
imagine how amazing the fire service could be across North America if all the firefighters turned out to be their high performing selves because they were taking care of their mental health, they're taking care of their spiritual health, they're taking care of their physical health. Just imagine how amazing our fire services could be
oh,
with people who
amazing.
showing up knowing their true self, right?
Right. And I'll say, I think we need to plant that seed by figuring out a way to get speakers into those departments.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I agree.
For minimal, I mean, not an overwhelming cost. Maybe it's just per diems,
Mhm.
you know, traveling per diems, but we can get people like you and some of the people that you've worked with already, get them into different departments. And again, may have to start in Canada, and I'm fine with that. And then hopefully, if you find it successful, it'll bleed down to the USA as well. And then we'll see other countries picking up on it.
Yeah.
Because if
Well,
our two countries do it, I think other departments would pick up on it as well.
for sure. I've done a few in the States in the last couple of years, and the next one will be in Reno for Fire Shows West. So I'll be talking about my burnout journey through there, and then also Pennsylvania is in the books as well. So be heading to both of those in the next coming
Well,
months, I guess.
one of
So,
them brings you to the greater Fort Lauderdale area,
yes, me too. Me
because I'd
too.
love to buy you a drink and buy dinner. Buy you dinner.
Love to. Love to.
All right. Well, Chief, I can't thank you enough for taking time again. And now that I've already locked you into another appearance, maybe in the late spring. But it's just great to listen to you, talk with you, learn from you. And I guess as one educator to another, you just do it in a natural manner. There's no, castigation. There's no blame setting. It's just, let's try to be better people,
Yep,
so we can do
100%.
this job that we love. And
Yep.
that's the important thing.
Yeah, I don't have any regrets and no blame.
All right. So please share to our listeners and viewers where they can get the book, where they can listen to you, please.
Sounds good. Well, my overall branching business is Silver Arrow Coaching Consulting, and that's silverarrowco.com, silverarrowco.com. And that's kind of where I do most of my coaching, but it's kind of the main parent company. And then underneath that is Beneath the Helmet podcast, which is the mind, body, and spirit of being an elite firefighter. And that is at beneaththehelmet.ca. And then also my book you can get on Amazon, Burnt Around the Edges. You can get on Amazon, Apple, Google, but also you can, if you want a signed copy, you can get that through burntaroundtheedges.com through myself as well.
Right.
And I'll be doing lots of speaking. I did a lot of kilometers. I was home for 7 days in June, going across Canada, basically presenting, speaking, different workshops and events. Working my way into healthcare now as well, which is another avenue that I've really seen a lot of burnout in healthcare, in nursing and doctors. And so that was nice to work with them this year. And then, like I said, Pennsylvania, Reno on the books for the States. And then I got a bunch of other Canadian ones that I'm working on. I love workshops. So, like you said, connecting with people, sharing that human aspect. I find that a keynote is great, but it's an hour. Where I find what really resonates is where I get to work with a group for a day or 2 days and really get into some solid stuff, right? And get to know each other and build that relationship versus just going in there for an hour. So yeah, that's all the stuff on the books, and working with 2 authors, doing 2 other co-authoring books. So those should be hopefully out in the new year as well. So
Great. I'm looking forward to more reading. I don't know if I'll read
exactly.
those yet. I have to wait to see if we're going to reread them like I do with your book. But
Yes,
it's just, and again, folks, I can't tell you, if you're in the fire service, you need to read the book, Burnt Around the Edges, right? Burnt
Around the Edges. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to read that. It will open your eyes. And for some of us, it makes us feel a little bit whole again, because we're not the only person. Like, we feel we're in a pit and somebody throws down water to us twice a day and a basket of fruit. This is real, has real power. As the chief just said, we can have good retention and recruitment, even in today's day. We can do it. But you have to remember, it's not the person who's interested in the fire service that makes the choice. They're not necessarily going to go there. It's what you say to them when they come to talk with you. Whether we'll probably play a heavy role in whether they stay or they walk away.
I would also add how they make you feel.
Exactly.
So the words might just disappear after 6 months, but how you made them feel will resonate for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you again, Chief. Look forward to much success in everything you do. And just can't wait for the spring. looking forward to seeing the little social media posts that,
Yep.
yeah, next week I begin riding with so-and-so, and we're going to be spending 48 hours together. I look forward to it. That's going to be terrific.
It
It
is.
really will
It's going
be.
to be fun.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
congratulations to you for another for another season and 9th season. And look forward to season 10.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And if it's possible, I'm going to try to do it.
Sounds good,
I
brother.
will. Folks, if you're watching the video, this will be the conclusion of the video. If you're listening to the audio, we're going to have a break, a couple of PSAs, and then we'll come back to finish up the show. Again, thanks so very much for tuning in. We appreciate it. We'll be back next week with another great guest on 5 Alarm Task Force. Take care, be safe, and stay well.